Joining us now, next up on the hot seat today on the College Lacrosse Preview Show. He is the head coach at Johns Hopkins, coming off a year in which they went 11-5, 5-0 in Big Ten play. Ended up making it to the NCAA tournament quarterfinals. He is Coach Peter Milliman, and he's back with us now here on GCR. Coach, it's Glenn and Patrick. It's always good to chat with you. Thank you so much for taking the time for us this morning. Coach, can you I think
Yep.
you're on mute. There
Sorry
you are.
about that.
No worries, Coach.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I appreciate that.
Absolutely, Coach. Obviously, a year ago, boy, my gosh, what a thriller that was against Virginia. Does it leave the guys that are back? Do you have like a sense of unfinished business within the program that like we know we can compete to win national championships? Now we just got to go do it.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's something that an experience like that will stay with you for a long time, forever. I also think it's something that the guys talk about here every year: the opportunity, the responsibility to compete for national championships. That's where we want to be. It's what we want to be doing, and coming up short in a really emotionally difficult way, I think is hard to erase, and we are resetting the table here for a new team, new season, and moving on with what we have. Not trying to bring anything with us, but I definitely think it's a little bit of fuel for some of those returners and those seniors and fifth years.
A little bit of a shuffle on the coaching staff. Obviously, John Crawley to High Point and Brian Kelly, the new offensive coordinator. Do you anticipate things being substantially different? I would guess that with the continuity, that it's not going to be a major overhaul for you or for the players this season.
Yeah, I think that's a good way of saying it. Obviously, we're making some moves in house, so there's a lot of continuity with players, player development, language. Those things are always going to be really significant when you're going year to year. But any sort of system change, small or large, is going to take an adjustment period, and our guys are working through that. But they're doing a great job. Coach is an outstanding offensive coordinator, so we're excited to get going.
I guess let's stay with the offense then. You lose a couple of guys who had been phenomenal for your program the last couple of years, and Angeles and Garrett Dagnon. I know it's not like you don't bring anybody back, clearly, and Matt Collison, Russell Menendez, but do you get the sense that maybe this isn't necessarily a group that's going to be carried by like one or two alphas, and maybe there's going to be more of a balanced attack moving forward for your program?
Yeah, that's probably accurate. I think Angel and Garrett were really big pieces for a number of years. I mean, this is my fifth year here, and I had those guys for all 4 years up until now. So they made a lot of contributions, but there was some other pieces in that class that graduated. Peshko, Casey, Grimes. There's a lot of other guys that were steady contributors, first line, second line midfielders that we were always working with. So as much as it's the mainstays and the centerpieces of the offense, it's a lot of times it's the contributors, it's the complementary players, it's the who's competing for that second midfield line, things like that.
At the other end, I mean, I got to think Scott Smith is one of the headliners, not just for you guys, but for any defense conversation for this season. Just for those that don't fully appreciate what he's meant to you guys, just can you kind of dive into how valuable he has been for you and will be for you this coming season?
Yeah, I don't want to get into a position where I overstate anything. I'm excited for Scott and everything he does here, but he's an outstanding young man, a very special guy that you don't get to coach very often. He's a heck of a player. He's a tireless worker. He's dedicated to everything we do here. He's developed into an outstanding leader, and he really sets the tone and pushes guys. And so he's hungry. He's hungry as anybody for an opportunity to compete and get back to the championship and bring something home to Homewood. He is definitely going to be a significant piece of what we do this year.
He is Peter Milliman, head coach at Johns Hopkins. He's with us on our College Lacrosse Preview Show. Coach, obviously from the outside, when you guys brought in Luke Stout as a transfer, I think the assumption would be that he would be the guy on day one. I guess let me go twofold. One, was that the assumption from you guys that he was going to be the guy, or is that still to be determined? And what did you like about Luke Stout that you wanted to bring him into the program?
Sure. I was excited to bring him in to compete, nothing more than that. I would never promise anybody on their way in here that there was going to be anything more than that. And that's the same communication that goes to all the other guys, the goalie position or anything else. having multiple years of starting experience. I thought he was um, a really competitive game day player. I didn't see him every day in practice, but watching film over for the course of a few years, I remember from high school as a recruit, I was really impressed by him. Just like his sense in the net and composure, through the situations and the clears and stuff like that. And so we brought him in here to have an opportunity to compete. We've got a heck of a goalie room right now. Coach Erlin is working with those guys as our former starting goalie, and really building those guys up as young men and as competitors. And we're excited to see this thing go.
Not a bad one to learn from, by the way. Not a bad choice to be able to keep around and have help out.
Mm-hmm. Got lucky with that one, yeah.
I was going to ask how his transition from playing to coaching has gone since you've known him as long as you have, and just what you've been able to see from him.
He's great. I mean, he's working as director of ops right now, so it's not as much of a coaching role as he would like, obviously, but it's a good transition for him from a student athlete to a professional and learn the business. So he's dealing with a lot of logistics and day to days right now. It's some of it's kind of tedious, but he's in there for every film session. He's on the field for every practice. He's around the guys and still in and out of the locker room, which is a massive contribution for us. He's a guy that's got multiple years of leadership experience in the net and just around a team. So that's a big one to add to our staff.
Another couple of veterans that you brought in, both from Yale, Patrick Hackler and Jack Montfort. The experience from being in a program like that for as long as they were, what you liked about those guys and how they fit in with this group.
Yeah, they're outstanding young men. Having a handful of years experience over there, very well put together program all the way around. Going against them for a number of years when I was in the Ivy League, and just seeing them from a distance here competitively. They recruit tough young men. They play a tough brand of lacrosse. You're going to get guys that have got their business end put together. So that's what we were really excited to get some experience. We graduated our top 5 or 6 on that end of the field. So getting guys in here with some game minutes under their belt, whether it was at Hopkins or otherwise, I think was a big addition for us. We've got some good younger guys, but I think the complement of having some experience right next to them really bolsters that group.
You mentioned this being year 5, and obviously a lot has happened over the last 4 years. Bigger rosters, 5 years of eligibility, COVID, all that stuff, and now most of those guys that were playing still in 2020 are out of the college system at this point. Does this feel like kind of the start of whatever the new normal is, or something close to what the new normal is, not just maybe for you guys, but for the entire sport at this stage?
I think that's accurate. It's hard to say that anything in the last few years was conventional.
Mm-hmm.
Even after you get through the COVID wave of 2 years, it's just so different. You get so many. I mean, we still have a good portion of guys that are coming back, because my first year here, I had basically 37 freshmen. So there were some of those guys that didn't play as much or had injuries or whatnot. So there's still some I say trickle down from the initial impact of COVID. So still working through the roster numbers and things like that. But it does start to settle in and feel like this is more of a routine, and some familiarity with guys that I've known for a long time. I loved everybody that I've been working with here, and the opportunity to coach, and all been amazing representatives of this program. It certainly takes a while to get recruits all the way through and know them for a period of time. So it's not for a plus or minus, just the way the process works.
There's a sense of normalcy right up until the NCAA changes eligibility rules here, and in like 5
exactly.
minutes, that'll be the way that it goes. Coach, I know when you were talking to USA Lacrosse Magazine, a couple names that you brought up that I wanted to get a little more from you. Eric Chick, someone that you felt like maybe is ready to take a next step for this program.
Yeah, he's moved into a role on the offensive end that is really helping us. Whether he's playing at attack or in the midfield, he seems to be competitive and putting himself in the mix. He's doing a great job. He's developed really well. The progress he's made since his arrival has really been impressive. And so, I don't know exactly if I could tell you where or how much or what type of that role would be, but he's put himself in that group right now. And last year he was in the red shirt scout team category. So it's a pretty significant progress, and I've been really, really proud of his development.
And then, unsurprisingly, landing another really talented incoming recruiting class. And I know one of the names you brought up was Sean Krogan. That could be someone that could take a step forward. Are there others that you look at in that class and say, these are guys that I'm comfortable that they're probably going to get some playing time for us early on?
Yeah, I mean, the class overall is really impressive. I've been excited to have them. Some of them, Krogan is the one I mentioned because he put himself in the mix pretty quickly and played as well. It played his way into contention maybe a little quicker than I thought or had expected, and so been excited about that one. But I think the whole group overall is going to be in the mix here pretty quick. We still have a pretty good sized roster, but these guys are challenging for spots all across the board. I would say that in the face-off, Joey Hobart and on the defensive end of the field, Tyler and Reese DeSico are both in the conversation there. Andrew Cook's been really impressive so far, and he's in a pretty deep goalie group to work with.
So I remember a year ago we were having this conversation, and I really wanted to get you to break down instant replay for us, and you let us know, we're not doing that in the Big Ten this year. It's not happening. So I know there's some expansion this year of the replay rules. What is it going to look like in the Big Ten this year as far as replay is concerned?
It's not required, but permitted this year.
Okay.
So everybody I've talked to in the Big Ten is going to do it. We are expecting to have it at every game. Except for some maybe technical issues or however that works out. But most everybody I've talked to is expecting to have the resource available.
And did you were you able to use it in any of the non-conference games last year? Did you get a taste of it at all?
Yeah, a little bit. I mean, we used it in the tournament, and
right, yeah, of course, yeah.
A few home games here. Really, the only games we didn't use it were the Big Ten.
Okay.
Big Ten conference games.
And I know there's a little bit more referee discretion to go back and look at it this year for certain things, like hits to the head, things along those lines. Coach,
they refined the language a little bit on it.
Yeah, Coach, if I could just broadly, we talk about obviously all the success that you've had these last couple of seasons. Do you have a sense now for what the difference is, where the team needs to be come May in order to make that breakthrough and get back to championship weekend?
From a January 28th standpoint, I don't know exactly what that is yet for what's going to get us, the win on the last round in the quarterfinals and onto the Final Four. But I know the guys are competing and hungry for it, and we're building as well as we can and on a daily basis to put ourselves in contention to get there. I think we need to let that desire bubble to the surface. I think we need to embrace that competitive edge and really put everything we have out there, on game day, but more importantly on the daily basis in the weight room and on the practice field. I think we have the pieces, but we got to execute. We got to make plays when it comes down to it. We got to have some depth into some of our systems and our strategies, and we need to make sure that we're executing fundamental plays on a consistent basis. And I think without those things, we're going to have a tough time expecting to beat the best of the best. But we need to make sure that we're in contention before we can expect to beat them.
Season starts on the road at Denver on Saturday, then the game at Towson next Tuesday night, first home game against Georgetown on February 8th. Coach Peter Milliman, always appreciate you. Looking forward to catching up as the season goes on. Thank you for taking the time for us this morning.
Sure thing. Thanks, guys.
Peter Milliman, Johns Hopkins with us here on our College Lacrosse Preview Show. Patrick, I assume the thumbnail for Johns Hopkins is that there's every reason to expect that they're going to be right back into that conversation.
I would fully anticipate that that's going to be a team that we see in the quarterfinals.
Yep.
The question becomes, is there enough there to get beyond the quarterfinals? And I don't say that in a derisive way whatsoever. There's enough.
Yes, the answer to that question could be yes.
Right. Because it very well could be yes.
Right.
I mean, I think that more so 2 years ago, I think, than last year. But I think it applies to last year too. I mean, that was a team that was, sort of more than the sum of its parts. A lot of complementary pieces. Obviously, you have guys like Jacob Angelis and Garrett Degnan from last year's team that were outstanding players. I kind of think Brett Martin's one of the guys that's kind of hard to replace too, the short stick D-Mitty. But I also think that you're talking about one of the best defensemen in the country in Scott Smith. You have one of the best midfielders in the country in Matt Collison. And you have certainly enough pieces on that offense. There are a lot of interchangeable parts, it felt like. Maybe not necessarily Angelis as the quarterback, but there were a lot of guys that you just kept coming in waves. And I would expect that philosophy to continue for Hopkins, even with a new offensive coordinator. So I see that as a team. They went 5-0 in the Big Ten.
Yep.
Maybe they don't go undefeated in the Big Ten this year. Maybe they don't win every single game that they won last year. But they could very easily win some games that they didn't win last season, too. So I expect that, just based on what we've seen the last couple of years, for them to be one of the more consistent, reliable teams. And if you're consistent and reliable, you eventually find a way to break through. So it's not as if they played poorly for most of that quarterfinal game either, right? I mean, 2 years ago they just ran into the best team in the country. What are you going to do? You're just not. No knock on Hopkins.
A lot of people have gone through that.
Yeah, like they just ran into Notre Dame. It wasn't a lot of fun. Last year, like they weren't that far away, and they got beat by a guy that they kept calling Mr. May and Connor Schellenberger. Yeah. So that team was not far from basically facing Maryland again for a shot at playing in the national title game. So I think this is a Hopkins team that's capable of making it to Foxborough. Will it? I don't know, but I don't think it's going to fall very short of it if it does fall short.